Welcome to our webinar. A short disclaimer at the beginning. This webinar is being recorded, so you can watch it later at any time. The audience is muted during the session, but you can type in questions using the question mark button on the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll try to answer your questions during or after the session. The creation of visual materials has always relied on feedback from other stakeholders, be it reviewers and approvers in an organization, customers, clients, or other colleagues. As a designer, you depend on collaboration with others to complete your work. Typical collaboration methods, however, are cumbersome. While we've seen evolutions in how designers themselves can collaborate with their own teams, typical workflows involving clients still rely on email, PDF reviews, in some cases even paper markup, then consolidation of feedback from various sources, and so on. Ultimately, it's inefficient, time-consuming, and expensive. And while other design tools focus on only designers collaborating on desktop or sharing for review being added as a plugin that still requires file conversion and is still disconnected from the design tool, I'm really excited to share with you how CorelDRAW 2020 enables designers to collaborate with clients and colleagues directly within the professional graphic design environment. Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Klaus Vossen. I'm Senior Product Manager at Corel, working in a great team of talented people to bring the CorelDRAW products forward. With me today, virtually, is Jogie, who will do the main part of today's presentation, showing you how collaboration can work seamlessly in CorelDRAW 2020. Mo is an independent artist, designer, writer, and activist. Jogie studied fine art, graphic design, and multimedia, and has worked and consulted to leading brands in the creative industry. He serves on several local and international design associations, and his focus on design is on sustainable and user-centric design, which you will see in the design examples he picked for today. Before I hand over to Mo, let me quickly share with you our vision of how the design workflow is changed and improved by enabling collaboration within your graphics design environment. As a designer, or as a team of designers, imagine that you don't need to leave your design environment to loop in your clients or colleagues or other stakeholders to get their feedback on the design proposal, to collect their comments, questions, and suggestions, and even have your reviewers collaboratively work on the design, adding comments and annotations in real time, seeing what others think and reply to that instantly, all in a virtual environment that is easy to use, doesn't require any installation or licensing. Now that's what you get with CorelDRAW 2020 and its new collaboration tools right inside the design environment. Please note that the collaboration tools and cloud sharing services we're going to show you now are all included with a CorelDRAW Graphics Suite, or Technical Suite for that matter, subscription. And for those who prefer to own CorelDRAW Graphics Suite 2020 for perpetual use of that version, you can still add on a CorelDRAW.app Pro subscription to benefit from the cloud sharing options that enable the real-time collaboration in CorelDRAW. Without further ado, let's hand over to Jogie to show you what this is all about.
So thanks, Klaus, for that very insightful introduction. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on the session. I'm hoping you can see and hear me okay. What I thought I'd do is quickly walk you through the design process and kind of give you a designer eagle eyes view of the content we'll be covering in this cross-media design aspect, okay? So first off, of course, we know we've got the design brief from client. They're wanting specific components, that is corporate identity, some print assets, a web wireframe, a responsive design mobile kind of markup as well. So let's look at some of the possibilities. We started with the identity, and we created, because it's a biosphere that deals with both land and sea, we created an earth identity and we created an ocean's identity. And what Corel allows for is this very rich layering of content. And as you can see, it's, it just gives you this visceral view of being able to build content really, really interestingly. I use transparencies a hell of a lot because it gives a sense of real-world interaction with the play of light. So that's the identity. What we then did is we obviously broke it out into the various assets, this being the print assets. And essentially what we have is we have the different components from business cards through to letters and folders and, of course, promotional gifts. Once all of this has been collated, what I'll share with you is the actual sharing of this content for live interaction with clients, okay? And we'll have multiple folks who are stakeholders in the project that will be participating in that review process. So these are the print assets that I wanted to take you through very quickly. Here's a web wireframe. Again, I make use of the depth engine in CorelDRAW a hell of a lot. And what do I mean by that? So for example, if I just go out of preview mode for a moment, you'll see that this 3D aspect to each of these screens has been done, of course, using the block shadow, and of course the transparencies and the reflections have been done using the transparency features inside of the objects in the properties dockers or inspectors if you're on Mac, okay? So that's the web wireframe. I'm going to jump into full screen mode once again. Then what we have, of course, is responsive. So generally what we do is when we work a mobile app, which is the kind of typical way of working when designing for screen design. And that's basically what we have. We have that web wireframe broken out into the various subsections that would be of interest to somebody browsing the website on a mobile device. And then finally, what we look at in lieu of the client brief once again is the responsive design overall. So again, we've just mocked up from desktop all the way through to mobile, or rather in reverse, from mobile all the way through to desktop, more appropriate. So at this point, what we'll do is, just for efficacy and speed and making sure that you don't wait a long time for things to happen, I'm going to jump across to a document where we've just consolidated all of these components, and we're going to share that for review using the collaboration features inside of CorelDRAW. So what we've done here is we've simplified the file, and I've collated the necessary elements that I would like to have my clients give me feedback on. So just to quickly take you through it, I've distilled it to the main components, which is the print assets that you're seeing on your screen currently. Then, of course, what we have is we've got the scrollable responsive website. So that's the web wireframe that I would like to get consensus on and feedback on. And then finally, of course, we've got the responsive web design in terms of the screen design aspect of this particular project. Okay, guys, so I've just zooted back to the first page. I'm ready to share this with my collaborators and stakeholders in this project. So there's a number of them. So you'll see comments coming in from all of those folks. So the key thing to remember here is that we're not exporting into weird formats. We don't have to then go ahead and pull in and buy other expensive pieces of software, forgive me. We're doing all of this within the CorelDRAW ecosystem. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and add a note. So I'll add a note on the first page so that the first thing that my collaborators and stakeholders see is my comments saying, hey, please, I'd like some feedback from you, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. And what you'll see happening then is that note is now populated inside of the document sitting right at the top there. I'm going to go ahead and share this. Let's see how easy and straightforward this is. I'm heading over to this little save and share icon, little cloud icon. I'm going ahead and clicking on that. What then is going to happen, it's going to say, hey, what do you want to save this file as? So I'm going to leave it as Living Eden's markup. That makes sense for me. And then I'll hit the save and share button to then push it out to Corel Cloud so that my collaborators can come in and participate in the experience. So you guys, this is where the magic happens, right? I'm going to go ahead and share this file. And remember that you can share with anybody, both inside and outside of the organization. So Corel's not fussy in that way. So I'm adding my reviewers, okay? In this case, I'm going to add Klaus, Greg, and Liz as my 3 primary reviewers. I can add more people if I want. I can remove people from the entire share process if I want. And what you can see I can do is I can give different levels of access to these reviewers. In this case, I'd like them all to have reviewer access, that is the highest level access. In fact, one lower than highest level. As you can see, approver is the highest level. And what we then can do is go ahead and share this. What they'll receive on their end is they're going to get an email, and I don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything. But if you're kind of nervous about it, you can always copy the link and send it to them separately. And that's how easy it is. So what we'll now do is we'll jump over and have a look at how the review process takes place in respect of each of the reviewer's experience as well as my experience as the designer. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at that next.
Thank you, Mo. So we'll now proceed to reviewing the design, and you can actually see how this looks like on my laptop. So I've received the notification, clicked the link, and now I see the shared design in my browser. This is a reduced UI of CorelDRAW.app, so I have options to navigate through the document, and I have that comments inspector on the right that I can use to view and to add comments and annotations. On the top right, you can see these small colored icons with the initials there. So there is more people in that design at this time. And we now want to start reviewing that design in a real-time collaboration between the 3 reviewers that Mo had shared their design with. So I can now see, okay, there is this first comment that Mo added in CorelDRAW on desktop to basically message to us that the design is ready for review. And now we can add comments and annotations as we review the document. We, that is me, plus 2 other reviewers, Liz and Greg, who are in that same document at this moment, and start reviewing it. So let's go through the pages and have a look at what's happening in the document while I have it open on my laptop and others have it open at the same time on their devices. So here we see a first comment coming in on page 2. So I can navigate to that and have a look. Okay. And I actually want to reply here as I second that. I'm as impressed by the design as my colleague Liz is, and I reply to that. It's instantly displayed as a comment in the design file. Now there is a comment on page 3 that Greg added here. I can navigate to that again, have a look. And that's using the marker pen to tag to mark up an area in the design. Also an option in the comments docker that you see here on the right, and at the top there's these commenting tools. So I can navigate through the document, I can add comments and annotations using the various commenting and annotation tools, and work through my review in cooperation, in collaboration with my colleagues who are reviewing this. And as we see here, you also have the ability to address a comment to a specific person. In that case, it's Mo, the designer, who has been tagged with the @ in this comment. So I can add a reply here again. And I want to make sure we see that change in the other background as well. And then we're good to go with that. As you can see here, I can navigate through the document, and whenever something happens, I will see that in the comments docker as there is this number flagged, and then I see that new tag up here for a new comment that I haven't seen yet. Clicking on the comment will navigate me to that page, to that area in the document, so no need to try to find it. It will be instantly synchronized between the design view and the comments docker. And now I see in real time what's happening in that document. So Liz has replied to the comment from Greg, and it actually has been assigned to Mo, the designer, with that add tag. So now we're in the situation where Mo, as the designer, can directly jump in. He has received a notification by email, and then have a look at how Mo, as the designer, would react to this. So we're now looking at Mo's screen. He has a little more rich UI in CorelDRAW.app, so he can use that same web app with the objects panel on the left, with the properties panel on the right, behind the comments docker. And now Mo, as the designer, as the owner who has received that notification, can now reply in real time while the reviewers are in that document. And that way, the collaboration can happen between not only the reviewers, but also with the designer being part of that real-time collaboration and review. For example, to add a reply directly in here while he has been asked by the reviewers about what he thinks about this being used in a print asset in a much higher resolution, of course. And that's his comment that he's typing in there. And we will see once he's finished, as we switch back to the reviewers view, that this will be updated for all the reviewers. So now let's have a look back at the reviewers screen. Here we are. So we could continue with that, but I guess at this point in time, you get the idea of how this real-time collaboration works. So let me add a final reply to the designer's initial comment to the reviewers. Let me tell him that we're now done with our review. This will trigger another email notification. Once that's in, Mo will be ready to tackle the design changes, to review all the comments and annotations in CorelDRAW. So we're beyond the create and connect phase, and now we'll move to complete to get the design completed. Over to Mo.
Okay, so I've just received an email from Corel Cloud to say that comments have been populated in the document. So I'm back in my favorite piece of software. I'm sitting in CorelDRAW again on the desktop, and I'd like to retrieve those comments and that file and start working through it, okay? So what you'll notice is you've got this brand spanking new icon, which is, of course, open from Corel Cloud. Let's go ahead and click on that. And what you'll see happening real time is it's showing me all of the documents in Cloud. And there's my document. So I can go ahead and open this. But for the sake of time and efficacy, what I've done is I've downloaded it already. Let me jump to this file and walk you through it very quickly. Okay, so that's the document that we looked at a short while ago inside of CorelDRAW.app on the web. Now, what you'll notice is I've opened my comments docker or inspector. And of course, you can access that by way of the little plus at the bottom. I'm going to show you that very quickly. And off the top subset, you can see we've got comments open, and that's what we're looking at here. Okay. And what you'll notice is, let me open that again. What you'll notice is that like CorelDRAW.app, we've got this comments docker because we're working with the same document populated with those comments that you saw earlier. That real-time kind of feedback is really, really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and just work through these comments as you would do. And I think I need to emphasize here that we haven't converted, once again, we haven't converted to any weird formats. There's no third-party software that's required. There's no licensing that is required on the part of the client. So they don't spend a single penny in working with this very rich workflow, okay? So, of course, my first comment to the folks was, hey, this is ready for review. Klaus has come back and said, hey, this is great. Now I can respond to each of the comments, and I'm going to go ahead and say, look, I think I'm happy with that. And Liz has come through and said, hey, listen, I think that the colors should be changed in the logo. And let's go ahead and zoom in on that. So again, when I click on Liz's comment, that highlights for me here. Now, what I'd also like to point out is sometimes whilst you're working, these comments are, of course, a layer above everything else. So if that gets in your way, head over to the little sprocket icon or gear icon on the far right-hand side, top of your comments Docker or inspector if you're on Mac, of course, and you can choose to show or hide annotations by way of the tick box. I'm also showing all of my resolved annotations. Oftentimes when I'm working, I would switch that off, so I'm just looking at the annotations that I need to respond to and that need my attention. Okay, so let me go ahead and zoom in on that a little bit. So I'll hit the letter Z or Z on my keyboard, and I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in so you can see that better. So that's what Liz wants me to go ahead and adjust. Now, for benefit of doing an edit across an entire corporate ID like this, especially for those of us that work with this, you know that it can take a fair whack of time. The way we've crafted this is we're making use of symbols. So let me head over to the symbols Docker so you can see what's happening there. Inspector for the Mac folks once again. And there you can see that we've got the symbol of the living events, okay? Now what's magical about this is we can go ahead and make changes real time really easily. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and switch off my comments so I can see what I'm doing. And you'll notice that when I go ahead and select this object and head over to the objects Docker inspector, once again, that's a group. I'm not going to ungroup it. And this is the beauty of working with these kind of multi-tiered access points inside of the objects Docker inspector. I don't need to ungroup it. I can just drill down. It's very visual. You can make it larger or smaller off the bottom of the Docker if you wish. There's my symbol. Go ahead and choose that. And if you're familiar with symbols, of course, what you get is this edit functionality. I'm going to go ahead and hit that. So that opens the master symbol document. There we go. I'm just nesting that nice and square in the screen for us, okay? Let me show you the entire page so we don't get blinded by the identity here. I'll go ahead and select that identity. So remember, Liz's comments was she wanted that to be warmed up in terms of the green. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to make use of another favorite feature of mine that many designers are probably not aware of, but it's such a delicious feature, I have to tell you guys. So, and that is the color style Docker, and we're going to work with the color harmony here. And it's really, really, really powerful. So for those of us that are color freaks like myself, I think you're going to have lots of fun with this. As I drag my artwork into that Docker, CorelDRAW comes back to me. This is sticky, actually. So it knows that in my personal workflow, I prefer low numbers of groups. I usually just work with one. But for purposes of this conversation, I just want to strip out the black and the colors. I don't necessarily want to mess with the black too much. I want to mess with these turquoisey blue colors that Liz wanted warmed up, okay? So what I can now do is say, that's fantastic. I'm happy with that. And hit the OK button. And there we've got two sets of color harmonies that I can go ahead and manipulate. And this is how easy it is, you guys. I'm going to select the bottom one, of course, and you'll notice that this component at the bottom comes alive. Let's go ahead and open the harmony editor. And there we've got a rich color wheel that we can now go ahead and manipulate. You'll notice that there are color stops on this color wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this and take it to a warmer green. And you can see that that kind of is iterating across the entire piece of artwork. This logo element here of the globe has got like 6 or 7 elements attached to it. But intuitively, we can make these color changes really, really effectively. If this is new to you, whilst I'm here, I'd like to point out that you may want to explore some of these other options that are available to us, like analogous color harmonies or complementary monochromatic, triad. So do indeed play with the tetrad, which is 4 color stops, okay? For now, we're done, and I'm going to say I'm really happy with that. Hit the finish button here. And what that's going to do for us is save those changes. In real time, it's going to make those changes. So if I zoom in again, you'll see that that has rippled through the document, okay? Now, if I go back to my comments Docker or inspector once again, let me shun this out of the way and make my annotations visible once more, as well as a result, what you'll see happening is Klaus has come in and said, hey, I'd like to see that on a pink background too, right? So if I were to zoom out and look at the entire document, he's referring to this folder here. So that job is done already because we've worked with symbols and we've worked with the school color harmony setup. So all I'm going to do is bring that to the front. So in that single fell swoop almost, we've responded to Liz's request and we've responded to Klaus's request. So let's go ahead and resolve those. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say, happy with that. So that's resolved. That's resolved. And now we can go over to page 2. So let me jump to page 2. I'm going to hit F4 on my keyboard to show everything on screen. And you'll notice now that the comments docker has changed once again, naturally, because we're on a different page, right? So let's have a work through the comments. So Liz has come in and said, hey, the Earth logo looks awesome. Isn't it wonderful when you get that kind of positive feedback from the client? So I'm really thrilled by that. And I'm going to just say, yes, that's resolved. And Klaus has come in and said, okay, that he likes it too, so I'll go ahead and resolve that too. I'm going to now go through to what Greg is saying, because Greg actually has an ask, right? So I'm going to go ahead and select Greg's comment. And what you'll notice, you guys, is an arrowhead has popped up on the far bottom right. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that, okay? So we're dealing with the locations tab of our scrollable website here. And he's referring to the Pacific component. So what's he wanting? I like these images very much. So he'd want this for a print asset as well. Now, this is the type of client ask that have you and I break out into cold sweats at night, right? Because clearly the content is built for web. It's going to be low res. It's going to be RGB, etc. And Liz is going, hey, do we have this in high res? So Liz has worked out, okay, you know what? We need some high res stuff here. And my comment to Liz and Greg may come across as flippant, but it's not. Why? Because what Draw now does in this latest version, 2020, is it affords us this wonderful upscaling options using this artificial intelligence engine that it's got built in. It's just absolutely marvelous. So let me show you that, okay? What I've gone and done in the interim is I've gone and built a page for this. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and select that element. And I just want to share with you, so no smoke and mirrors here, you guys. I'm going to scroll down a bit, and you can see it's a group of 2 objects. If I pop that open, you can see we've got artistic text, which is specific in this case. We've got a power clip rectangle, as you probably would have worked out. And we've got the bitmap. And if I choose the bitmap, you can see that the resolution off the bottom in the status bar is all of 96 dpi, as would be expected of a whole web wireframe. So I'm going to go ahead and select power clip rectangle because I want the rectangle too. I'm going to simply copy that. Then I'm going to head over to page 4 and I'm going to show you the entire page. So let me share with you what I've done on page 4. What I've done on page 4 is I'm going to switch from pixels to millimeters for a moment. And what you will notice is that this is a 297 by 420. So it's an A3 document, right? And what I've done is I've pre-prepared components. So, obviously you know how to rescale content. So I've just made the logo smaller. You can see again, the symbol is just rippling through the entire asset set, irrespective of whether it is in the responsive or it's on the print assets or whatever the case may be, rippling through the entire document. And that's just wonderful. And then, of course, what I've done as well is I've taken the word Pacific, and dropped it into the cutout, die cut tab on the bottom right. So those 2 elements are fairly elementary, and I think you'll know how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and paste my copied element over here. So there you can see the pasted element at the bottom, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and hit, of course, my favorite letter is the letter P here, which means put it in the middle of my canvas. So there we have it. And what I'm going to do very quickly is I'm going to check that these objects under the properties inspector, you can read off these strokes as well, or outlines. I want to make sure that the strokes or outlines scale with the object. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and enable that button, scale with object. What that means is as I make the object larger or smaller, that element is going to scale. However, we need to resolve the resolution and the quality of this image as we take it to a print asset. And this is where it gets absolutely crazy. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extract that content from our power clip frame. So let's do that. There you can see the entire image, right? All of 96 dpi in its full glory. What we're going to do next is I'm going to head over to the bitmaps menu. And from that, I'm going to choose remove JPEG artifacts. Now what this is going to do is it's going to remove Jogies. Okay, there's a whole plethora of the stuff on the Discovery Center at Corel.com. So I encourage you to visit that. There's tons of learning material there where we talk about this in great detail. Okay. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is choose resample. So of course I can go back to the bitmaps menu and choose it from there. But, you know, Corel spoiled me, so I'll go ahead and choose this little option over here, which is up front and center for me. So here's our resample dialog box. Cool. What's the first thing we'll want to do? We'll want to go in and jump this up to 300 dpi. Okay. So you'll see that I'm going from a 200 odd kilobyte file to just over 2 megs now, right? So that's real time. Second thing I want to do is I'm going to jump this up to 400%, right? Remember, we're going from a piddly little postage stamp to A3 here. Typically, make it a little smaller, but we wanted to show you the technology, of course. And then finally, we're telling the computer what type of image we're dealing with. So we're telling it it's a photorealistic image. Therefore, it knows, okay, I need to do some noise reduction. How much noise reduction do you want? Okay, and that's essentially all that's required. And what's really wicked is Corel has been thoughtful enough, because this is quite resource heavy and intensive. It's saying, hey, listen, you've got a 50-second-ish wait. So let's go ahead, make yourself a cup of coffee. Let's hit the OK button. Okay, so there we have it. I'm going to go 1:1. And as you know, 1:1 is the final result you're going to get. And you can see that looks pretty marvelous. So we've got a 300 dpi image. You can confirm that off the bottom. I'll convert it to CMYK momentarily. But we're ready to go with this, you guys. So now let's go ahead and place this correctly in terms of the composition of this document. Again, I'm heading over to the objects Docker Inspector. There's my power clip rectangle that we worked with earlier. I'm going to shunt that to the top because I'd like to see it. And remember, we chose for these outlines to stretch as we're doing a stretch or a scale. I'm going to go ahead and pick up one of these corners. I'm holding Shift in my keyboard. So we get a bidirectional scale. And look at that. You see the line has gotten fatter as well, all simultaneously. Now what I could simply do is go ahead and select our image, right? And I'm going to reposition it slightly. So I'll just take it up so we have more of the coral. Love that coral, right? There we go. By the way, all the images we're working with here are part of the CorelDRAW clipart library. So definitely check that out. And if you haven't downloaded it, make sure you go through the welcome screen and click on the Get More icon there, okay? So with this guy selected, now what I can do is simply right-click on this, and I'm going to choose Power Clip inside, and then it's going to flag me to tag what I'd like to power clip it inside of, and there we go. I'm going to go ahead and power clip that inside of that element there. I'll just go ahead and make this a little smaller so it nests better in terms of the design, and then I'll shunt it down a bit. Voila, I think I'm happy with that. So now, finally, I do feel that the stroke is too thick. So what I'll go ahead and do is head over to the outline, can you see? And I can go ahead and manipulate this to my heart's content. So let's go ahead and make it 16. That's better. Okay, very happy with that. So now we've dealt with both Greg and Liz's request, I should say, about taking this through to a full screen element, okay? And that was done on page 2. Remember, those comments came through on page 2. So what we can now do is go ahead and reply to that comment, which is what I'm going to do here, at Greg and at Liz. They're not going to know this, right? So I will say, please see, I need to edit that, hit enter, forgive me. Please see page for updates, okay? All right, so that update is done. We're happy with that. We've resolved page 2 and everything on page 2 on the web wireframe. Let's jump over to page 3. Again, remember we're coming from a rather large canvas to a smaller one, so I'll hit F4 again on my keyboard, full screen. And if you prefer menus, remember you're going to go to the View menu, and those are your zooming controls right here. Okay? Zoom to fit is actually F4. Good shortcut to remember. Right, so let's see what are the comments here. So Greg has got an ask here. Again, if I click on Greg's comment, it's highlighting for me. I don't need to go in and try and figure out where that comment is. It's showing me exactly where the comment is. So let's go ahead and zoom in right there because we know that's what Greg is talking about. So Greg's request is, on the desktop, the text tends to be too thin. He wants it to be thicker. And I think that's a great ask because when you're moving responsive, you know, when you're dealing with mobile phones, you're going to create a more delicate kind of response in terms of the text weight. Whereas when you're on the desktop, you've got that extra screen real estate, right? So here's another opportunity for us to share with you a really cool feature in Draw 2020. And that, of course, you guys, is variable fonts. So this is making use of Open Sans variable, and let me share with you how it all comes together. So we're going to go ahead and respond to Greg's comment, right? So I'm going to jump over to the Objects panel or Inspector, or Docker more appropriately, in Corel speak, and I'm going to go ahead and select this object right here. And what the computer says is, hey, that's part of your desktop subgroup. And I've got my reflection here, so I'm just going to hide the reflection for a minute so we can see what we're dealing with. And I'll hop back to comments for a second, just disable the comments so I can see what I'm dealing with as well, more clearly. And those, I suspect, are my 4 menu elements. So I'll just go holding Shift and select all of them, and you can see they're all highlighted. What you'll note is you've got this new icon, this double A icon. You can see we're using Open Sans variable here. And I can go ahead and trigger that. Of course, I can do it through the Properties panel as well. And I like round numbers. So what I'll do first is I'll judge it visually. That's 400. I think it's a little thin. Yeah, so that's looking good. So we're sitting at about the 690-ish mark. I'll make it a nice, clean 700. Okay, it's just everything is placed in a place where everything is grandma used to say. So that's that. Ask from Greg complete. So we're done with that. I'll zoom out again, and that's looking nice and clean and strong. I'll head back to the comments, and from there, I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, I've resolved that as well. So all of those comments that have come through, we've worked through them in a very clean and uncomplicated way, a sophisticated way, but an uncomplicated way. I'm hoping you guys got a lot of value from that round trip. So now we're complete and we're ready to send this up and re-upload it to the cloud so my colleagues can then give me a second round of feedback, okay? Of course, what I'd like to now push for is the approval stage if they're happy with everything. Now, there's 2 ways we can push content to the cloud. We looked at comments of the comments Docker or Inspector. What I'm going to do now is just below the layout menu, you'll notice there's a Save to Corel Cloud option there. So let's go ahead and trigger that and see what happens. So again, it communicates with the server, it comes back to me, and it says, hey, I'm ready to upload this. So obviously for purposes of being safe, I added the review suffix after the name of the file. I'm removing that, and the reason for that, I want to give it the same name as the original so that it overwrites the original and creates another version of. Then I'm going to hit the Save and Share button. So again, Corel is warning me and saying, hey guy, you already have a version. Do you want to overwrite this? As would be the experience if you were saving to your desktop, okay? So let's go ahead and say yes. And what's now going to happen is it's just busy processing all that information. This is a chunky file, as you would imagine. And now it pushes it through to the cloud. So look at how this works seamlessly now. CorelDRAW.app has opened in my browser. And of course, what I'm presented with is, of course, the share file dialog. Okay. Right here, remember, we've made the changes the clients have requested. We want to now move to approval stage. So right here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is look through the reviewers, and I'm going to go ahead and tag Klaus. And I'm going to change Klaus from reviewer to approver. Okay. And once that is done, it's as simple as that. I'm going to choose to resend in the invitation email. And what that's going to allow us to do is to inform Klaus that, hey, listen, all changes have been made thus far. Can you please go ahead and approve the process? And what this is going to do, you guys, is it's going to eliminate a whole lot of back and forth as to who has taken responsibility, when things were approved, at what level you are, and it just kind of cleans up the entire process. And this is true for reviewers as well. You know, you may have a reviewer that's lagging a little bit. Everybody can see, okay, you know what, this person is actually holding up the workflow a little bit, right? So his or her manager can then respond to that. Of course, what I'm now going to do is move, remember we're still at review, we're going to change this from in review and request approval, right? So we're asking the client, please, can you approve this? Because we've made all of the changes we require. This is going to ping through to Klaus. And once Klaus gets the email, he simply again clicks on the handy link that he gets in the email and proceeds to look through the document and make the necessary approval. It's that simple.
Thank you very much, Mo. I'll take it from here. So I received that email notification that the file has been shared with me again. I click the link and then my browser window opens with this shared design file open, as you can see here. From here, it's really very easy for me to go through the document again. So all the updates I can see, okay, the warmer green color, that looks great on that page. I can navigate through the document again, look at the different changes that have been applied here on page 3. That all looks good. And then there is a new page 4. So let's have a look at this. Okay, that's the print asset where I wanted to see that image being included. So everything looks as expected and as I wanted it to see here. And you can see in this message at the bottom, I'm now able to approve this. So how do you do this? Well, in the comments docker, you see this ready for approval. And when I click here, I have a few options. I can approve it, and should there be any things that I need to change or I need to ask for being changed, I will tag this to be reopened so that it can be tackled again by Mo. In that case, I should obviously use the commenting annotation tools again to mark up what I want to be changed. In this case, I want to complete this now, give the approval stamp. That will be logged in the status history so that at any time in the future, it is clearly documented that this design has been approved in this stage at that date and time. And there we are. Feedback on design projects has evolved from asynchronous offline communication to real-time communication. And as we've shown you in this webinar with CorelDRAW 2020, it has now evolved to real-time collaboration. Collaboration on design projects is now becoming integrated, transparent, and seamless, with feedback being provided in real time by many stakeholders without any file conversion or other disruption, and directly actionable in the design file within the CorelDRAW design application. And best of all, you deliver a professional experience to your clients by sharing the design file with them for access in a browser on their device with no license or anything else needed. A seamless workflow to create, connect, and complete. Thank you for your attention today. If you haven't tried out the collaboration tools in CorelDRAW 2020 yet, now's the best time. Go to CorelDRAW.com/collaboration to try it out. Tell us what you think of CorelDRAW 2020's collaboration workflow for a chance to win. Note that the CorelDRAW collaboration contest runs until November 13th, 2020. Looking forward to hearing your feedback and enjoy collaboration on designs with CorelDRAW. Thank you.